France wants to stay in Africa. It has absolutely no desire to leave Africa at all. It wants to stay. But how do you do that in the face of a young generation that is awake and aware today? So they must necessarily find another way of staying.
Paul Melly is a consulting fellow of the Africa programme at Chatham House, and he joins us from London. Welcome, Paul, to the News Hour. That shot we showed right at the start of that report, Macron was there in Ouagadougou in November 2017. It was only 6 months after he became president. Did he say anything there in Burkina Faso that reset relationships, that formed the basis of what he wanted to be the new relationship?
I think he opened a couple of really important perspectives. One was that the traditional approach had been French presidents almost always, shortly into their term of office, come to an African city and make a speech. And the big contrast, if you like, was with the speech made by President Sarkozy, obviously some years earlier, where he had made a speech in Senegal, basically saying that African man had not sufficiently entered into history, had not, as it were, made a sufficient mark on the world. Whereas the whole point of Macron's speech was to say Africa is right at the heart of the world and the big questions of today. And through his speech and then the subsequent Q&A with students afterwards, I mean, he took questions openly from the floor. He essentially tried to make the case that France wanted to remain a partner of Africa, but that it was for Africa to take its own decisions, to set its own views, to set its agenda. And you can see that, for example, in the case of the CFA franc, the currency that's used in many former French colonies in Africa and which is still pegged to the euro under French guarantee. When he was asked about that by the students, he basically said, it's up to African governments, whatever choice they make, if they would like to change this system, that is up to them and France will support them. But he's also faced a challenge because at the same time, France has been the key security partner for so many governments across the Sahel in trying to fight jihadist armed groups. And that's a really difficult balance to strike because on the one hand, he's trying to modernize and refresh the relationship. And obviously this summit this weekend, making a big point, unlike previous Africa summits, it's not a whole a series of presidents who are coming. Instead, it's civil society, it's African writers. He's asked a prominent Cameroonian writer, for example, was invited to draft the cultural dimension of this summit and some really difficult questions. So he's trying to refresh all that. But at the same time, France, ever since 2013, when it was asked by the then president of Mali to come and help fight the jihadists, has been in this central security role. And that's a very sensitive and difficult issue because, of course, as we know, the struggle has dragged on. It's proved very difficult. It's not been easy to defeat these armed groups. And it's always difficult for people in West Africa to see the soldiers of the former colonial power, as it were, present on the ground, engaged in this very high-profile activity, even if it was at the invitation of the Malian government.
Paul, thank you so much indeed. We're going to have to leave it there. Really, really appreciate it. And I hope you come back again to talk to us on TRT World. It's always instructive to hear from you. Paul Melly from Chatham House.